28 people. That's great.
You're on, Commissioner.
All right. The countdown happened. We're live.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for May 12, 2020. And for those of you that want to attend via the conference call, phone number is 360-252-9020, and your PIN number is 1234. You're welcome to join in, not participate audio or verbally, but you are welcome to listen in. By way of introduction, what I'm going to do is tell you I am John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and there are 28 people in attendance. I will introduce my seatmates, Vice Chair, Co-Chair, Commissioner Ty Menser and Commissioner Gary Edwards. And we also have County Manager Ramiro Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell in attendance, and a slew of other very important people. So I don't know what, okay, Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter. And the pictures keep jumping around. We have Director of Emergency Management, Kurt Harden. And let me see what else we here. Keely Marino. Oh, we have Dr. Diana Yu, our Health Officer for the county. Welcome. And like I say, there's a host of other people for the record. This is being recorded so everybody can see who everybody else is. I'm not going to go through the whole mantra. Am I missing anybody, Ramiro?
You're missing quite a few, but I think it will take us a while to go through each of the names.
It will. And are we missing anybody on the phone?
I think somebody joined us on the phone, but I cannot get the name.
So we'll start with the good morning and the COVID update, and I'll return to Director of PHSS, Shelley Slaughter.
Joining the conference.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So for this week's COVID report, I want to share with you the latest data that we have available. As of yesterday afternoon in Washington State, there are 17,122 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and unfortunately 945 deaths. Here in Thurston County, we have 123 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 1 death. Testing in the state of Washington, to date, 252,108. That's a 6.8% positive rate. That continues to go down. Here in Thurston County, cumulative to date, 6,378 tests, 1.9% positive. In the last week, there have been 1,204 total tests with 12 positive. 113 residents have recovered from COVID-19. That does not mean they don't have long-term health impacts, but we're no longer monitoring them at public health. 19 have been hospitalized. 68% of those hospitalized have report an underlying condition. We have 0 outbreaks in congregate care settings, which is good news. Our healthcare capacity continues to be stable. Hospitalizations for COVID-like illness continues to go down. Our local hospitals report adequate PPE, although we still don't quite have sufficient. Elective or non-urgent medical procedures are scheduled to resume by proclamation of the governor on May 19th. Our hospitals plan to reserve 20 to 30% capacity in the event of COVID surge. Continues to report adequate ventilators. Much of our work in public health over the last week has been preparing to move Thurston County to phase 2 in the coming weeks. That includes increasing our public health capacity in several areas, including community-wide testing, our ability to quickly respond to outbreaks in congregate settings and with high-risk populations, increasing our investigation and contact tracing, and ensuring that our isolation and quarantine site is ready to go. We are doing a lot of advising on businesses in regards to reopening at this time, and continue to remind the public to please adhere to social distancing, wear cloth face coverings, get tested if you are experiencing any of the symptoms of COVID-19, wash hands, sanitize surfaces, and continue to stay home, stay healthy to the extent possible. And with that, I will pass it over to Dr. Yu to add on to this report and share some other information, things that we are learning about this novel coronavirus.
Thank you. Good morning. I think some of the things that we are starting to learn about coronavirus is how they, well, COVID-19 in particular, is how it affects different populations. So there's a lot more information now that we've had a lot of cases out in the New York area. There's a lot of research going on. There's an association with strokes and cardiac heart attacks that seem to be attributed to COVID-19. There are also cases of folks who are suffering from what's called clotting disorders. So these are the things that the complications that they're seeing. And one in particular that is worrisome right now is that they are now associating a Kawasaki Disease-like syndrome to children that have COVID. So what they've noted is that they have kids coming in that have, it's a syndrome of diseases. It's high fevers, they get a rash, they get parched lips, swollen hands and feet, and then it can affect their heart. So what is happening is that Kawasaki disease has been discovered quite a long time ago. We still do not know exactly what causes it, but it's triggered by a number of viruses. And it's your body's immune response to the virus that causes you to have this disorder. So they are finding kids that have Kawasaki-like disease, and they're testing them, and they are testing positive for COVID. So they're thinking there might be an association. But this Kawasaki's disease is not, not just with COVID. It happens with other viral diseases also. So where we've been saying that, and the news has been that the COVID-19 doesn't affect young people and doesn't affect children, we are finding that that's not so true. COVID-19 is a serious illness, and even folks who recover may have lasting pulmonary disease or cardiac disease or renal disease. So these are all things that should have people take caution. Most people will survive getting COVID-19. Unfortunately, we know that a number of people who get it will not survive, but most people will. But there may be lifelong health issues after you recover. So it's not a simple, easy disease. With something like influenza, you get it. When you get over it, you're better. And we're finding that that's not 100% true for COVID. There's more to be learned about it. We still do not know everything about it, and things trickle in, information trickles in. And the more we have experiences with COVID, especially in the United States, the more is written about it, and scientific studies are much more open and shared.
Well, thanks for that, Doctor. That was the burning question I had was about the children, because that's becoming hot topic news.
Yeah, and And our doctors are aware, and they are, they're not, they have not been testing a lot of children because of the, it doesn't really make a difference in how you treat them if the children are going to get a mild disease. But now with this, they're thinking that if there's a child that presents with a Kawasaki-like syndrome, that they will be testing for COVID. So far, I have not personally heard of anyone here locally. I think to date, if I recall, I think we have 6 kids under the age of 18 that were reported. 5 of them are 12 and under. The youngest is 2. The 5-year-old and a couple of 9-year-olds that were reported, and they seem to be doing okay.
All right, and so COVID-19 is a part of everybody's conversation in our vocabulary. Is this for the children? That's what it's called, is the Kawasaki Syndrome?
No, Kawasaki Syndrome is one of the complications that can arise. It is not the name of the disease in kids.
And what is that name? Do we know yet?
It's COVID-19. I mean, it's the same. It's the same. There is no particular name to it. We just know that there are complications from the disease. And
thank you. Commissioner Edwards, any questions?
Yes. How many are currently hospitalized?
I think we have, one gentleman that's hospitalized because of COVID. There's another person that.
Are we able to do elective surgeries yet at the hospitals?
That's scheduled for May 19th, sir.
That opens up May 19th. When we do tracing, do you come up with some folks that you need to test that are not showing any symptoms, but when they tested, you find that they are testing positive or they're asymptomatic?
Yes, we have household members that have tested positive that are not symptomatic. We also have household members that become symptomatic and then get tested and are positive.
Do we have a record, or could we get a breakdown of how many of the tests that we've done were asymptomatic? I'm just like a percentage. Were 50% of them asymptomatic or anything like that?
That would be a difficult. We can give you the number of the people that we have that are reported that are asymptomatic. I'm going to tell you that it's very, very few, because the criteria for testing requires you to have symptoms.
Oh, so, even though you did tracing and found out that that person may have been exposed, that's kind of.
We do not routinely test people who are exposed. When people are exposed, when we counsel them, we ask them to look for symptoms, and when they have symptoms, we then do the test.
Oh, okay, well then disregard that earlier question. I guess that was really where I was going with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Menser, any questions or comments?
I had a question. So is there, for Shelley or Dr. Yu, is there a significance to the state positive rate of 6.8 and the Thurston County of 1.9? I mean, the fact that that's so different, is there something to be drawn from that, or is that just kind of random based on who we're testing?
I think what I wanted to highlight to you was that the percentage of positive cases continues to go down. At the peak of this, the Washington State positive rate was 9%, and ours was 3%. Mm-hmm. And so that's good news that we're seeing less cases, and a percentage of all tests is an indicator to us, since we know we're not still able yet to test statewide at broad enough a broad enough level, that's a good indicator to look at that.
They're both moving in the same direction is what you're kind of saying.
Yes.
And
Okay.
as we do more testing, as things open up, folks who are going in for surgical procedures before surgery and before labor and delivery, they are testing folks prior to entry into the hospital, and these folks are generally not symptomatic. So, we may find, in terms of Commissioner Edwards' question, we may find more. At some point, when we have more testing capacity available, we may start testing a few more asymptomatic people without symptoms. But it's hard to capture because there's a certain amount of false positives. It's a very, very small percentage. But when you mass test, 200,000 people, even a very small percentage comes up with a large number. And of people with symptoms, we're only getting roughly 2% positive. So that does say that our disease burden is less than up in the Seattle area, where it has been up to 10 to 13%. But it's nowhere near what it is in New York, where their disease burden is heavier. And it is just by population.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
No.
Did you have more time?
I'm done.
So I know this, you can't give me an answer with any degree of accuracy, Shelley and or Doc, but the way we're trending currently, are we still kind of on target for June 1 moving into phase 2? Because you mentioned that up front, Shelley, about a couple weeks.
Thurston County is doing really well. I think that we are on track. One area of focus for us to improve upon in the coming weeks is around testing. So right now we are surveying our local providers to assess what kind of testing gaps that we have in order to be able to increase testing. So the target number of tests in Thurston County per day is 500, and our average over the last week was about 200. So we have some work to do around that in partnership with our healthcare providers and encouraging the public to get tested if they're symptomatic.
Okay. And then one final question from me, and that is, I saw a news report this morning, and I don't know how it's going to impact our assessments or research. When somebody, and they had the news folks had, it was, I don't want to say it's scientific, but it was an animated scenario, someone in a restaurant or someone in a big building. And when someone coughs or sneezes, the droplets go out. They bounce off walls, they bounce off people, they bounce off other animate objects or inanimate objects. Or if a window's open, that spreads the droplets around. And with the HVAC pushing air around, when we get to the point when we start opening up businesses, how will that impact our inspection of places, even with 6-foot distancing and such? How would we track that or monitor that, or I don't know. It's new to me.
Our restaurant inspectors now have been supporting local businesses that fall under phase 1, primarily to go takeout, have been supporting them in ensuring that they're able to do so safely with the latest guidance for COVID-19. And the governor released new information this morning, I believe, for phase 2 restaurants and the criteria that they will need to meet. And public health will be responsible for helping to support our local restaurants and being able to adhere to the new requirements.
Oh, good. Okay. Because that's going to be a big topic again coming up as we open up. And
Yeah,
if there are any spikes. Go ahead, doctor.
In addition to social distancing and wearing face coverings, these are the things that are very important to the spread of the disease. There's also the requirement for increased sanitation and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces. The droplets in general that we're talking about are heavy. They fall and they do fall onto the ground. They may end up, if you sneeze against or cough against a wall. So that the notion of wearing face coverings, especially when you have symptoms, is what will help to prevent that.
Kind of, on a side note, last week I was in a big warehouse type store, and the majority of people, all the staff, and we're wearing masks. I'm checking out, and there's a couple, presumably a husband and wife, about 10 years older than I am, and they're in the next line checking out, and they are not masked. And he looks at me and he just kind of chuckles and he said, wow, so much for social distancing and 6 foot spread when they've got all these fans going. And I said, hence the mask. Protect yourself. Just kind of funny. But it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a hot topic, but that's good information. Thank you very much. Anything further? Romero, please.
I'd just like to follow up on what Shelley stated related to phase 2 and some of the requirements. I briefly heard this morning what the governor is planning to do for restaurants when we reach phase 2. And also, if you heard from Shelley, the compliance of those requirements will be following to the local public health organizations. And that by itself is going to create a lot of burden to the current staff. So I think parallel to moving into phase 2, we need to have a conversation as to how we're going to be able to meet the requirements of that compliance aspect, because it's going to be a lot of work.
Agreed. All right. So since we're on COVID, Kurt Harden, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner Hutchins. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The ECC here, we're supporting the public health IM team and activated since March 3rd. The biggest priority we're having today is this morning, actually yesterday evening, the state announced their decision that they will bill out local jurisdictions for PPE. That's distributed out from the state. However, the state said that they sent a draft plan, and the draft plan has 3 options. One where the state bills the county and the county just absorbs the costs. The second option is the state bills the county and the county bills the end user. Or the third option is the state sends a PPE to the county distributes it to the end user, and then the state sends a bill directly to the end user. Thurston County is going back to the state with the third option as our recommended course of action, since the paperwork for contract management with what's now turning out to be it was originally 150, now we're over 200 end users that we're providing PPE to throughout the county. So we do not have the staff within the county to manage that size of contracts. So and physical billing. So we're going to go with that option to go back. Other than that, that's our largest priority today.
Wonderful. Any questions, commissioners, for Kurt?
No, sir.
Don't see any hands up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. So we're going to move into homeless strategies, and we have Katie Marino with us.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I don't have much to report today. Things are just keep on moving forward in the ways that I reported last week. The only thing I can think of that is different is St. Peter's, Providence, St. Peter's did reach out to our department around concerns of the increase in RVs and vehicles parked along Ensign Road. We have been in communication with Keith Staley and the new homeless coordinator, T.L. Russell at the City of Olympia, and connected them to Providence so they can meet and talk directly with each other. And Keith Staley and T.L. Russell have done, and other members of the City of Olympia staff are doing almost daily outreach to those individuals. They've provided dumpster and a portable toilet out there for them, and are trying really hard to figure out ways to support them in a kind of an impossible situation. So City of Olympia is working directly with those individuals, which is good to hear. And so we're keeping up with our 3 meetings a week with the City of Olympia to continue working in close partnership throughout this COVID crisis, and then generally for homeless response. I think that might be it for updates.
Okay, any questions for Keely from the commissioners? Yeah, Ty, go ahead.
So Keely, is there like a, regarding RVs, is there any kind of like overarching thought process or strategy going on? I mean, the last I heard about this, Lacey was trying to set up a street over by Cabela's, and they got tons of community pushback. So they were trying to find another place, but I never heard of anything materializing. Olympia, last I heard, was concerned about they were trying to work with the state on all the RVs stretched along Deschutes Parkway, but I never really heard where that landed. I just never kind of heard what the long-term plan is for any of the jurisdictions, including ourselves, about managing the RV situation.
Yes, so Lacey did attempt to put in a safe parking program over near Hawks Prairie. That was rejected and voted down. They do have a program that does exist right now where individuals in RVs can apply for a license or a little permit, for them to park behind their city hall over there in Lacey. However, the requirements for obtaining the permit are pretty restrictive, and I don't know if anyone, it's been quite some time now, has taken them up on that. After the permitting process and requirements were put into place, that's when we saw the increase in the vehicles alongside Deschutes Parkway as they left the city of Lacey. Then Department of Enterprise Services started reaching out to homeless providers, jurisdictions, law enforcement, and having a rulemaking process. They were still in the middle of that rulemaking process when Stay Safe, Stay Home order was put in place. So I am not aware of what the DES is, where they are at in terms of their rulemaking. They were attempting to come up with an actual response rather than just kicking the can down the road. But in the meanwhile, Washington State Patrol has been citing those RVs if they appear to be having any kind of leakage problem and evicting them. So I know a lot of homeless service providers have been working really hard to help those individuals either get their vehicles running if they're not operating, and helping them get into housing. But essentially, the Washington State Patrol and their citing of those and then eviction of those RVs is what's caused the Ensign Road crowding. So there aren't any options on the table right now. Folks have been pretty focused on COVID response and sheltering and quarantine and isolation. Speaking with Keith Staley, he mentions that these individuals, many of whom are incredibly medically fragile, and some of them recently have become homeless due to job loss or to medical expenses, and are very at risk for based on underlying medical conditions and age for contracting COVID. So he's got great concerns, and as a city, as a jurisdiction, doesn't know where else they could possibly go that they could be served so well. So it's a huge issue.
Somebody sent me an article that Clark County has adopted a policy about allowing RVs on private property. Do you know anything about? I don't know anything about it. I didn't have a chance to read it, but maybe you could just poke into that this week and see what it is they did and why they did it. Be interesting.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
All right, Ramiro, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, Keely, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keely.
And as a reminder, the May BoCC meetings have been canceled, and but we're going to review items for May 19th. And number one is the proclamation for National Public Works Week.
Yeah, Commissioners, my apologies. There are also two items. They might be coming to your attention next week. One of which is the proclamation for you to consider declaring next week a law enforcement week in Thurston County. And if with your concurrence, we'll draft a proclamation for your consideration. And maybe you can approve and read it next Tuesday. And again, it will be a law enforcement week in Thurston County.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. We look forward to that.
Is now joining the conference.
And also,
Yes, so, go ahead.
the other item that is not in your agenda, but you also review that, it will be for you consideration to move forward with the IT project related to the court video replacement project. You received a briefing last Thursday related to all those projects. So for your consideration, we'll be bringing this item back up again for a final determination by the board.
All right.
And the proclamation that it is on your agenda is for you to consider proclaiming May 17th through 23rd, 2020, a National Public Works Week.
Okay, so we have copies of the proclamation, and we'll review it and get feedback, provide feedback, or sign it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope. Ty, nothing?
No.
Okay. Then proclamations and awards, we just did that. Go ahead.
I just was looking at this Public Works Week. It seems like, I don't know if this is a template, but it seems like we could add a paragraph or two about our local, kind of how many folks we have locally, and maybe even reference some of the awards that they've won over the last year or so. I mean, this seems like pretty generic. I think we could add a paragraph or two about our local public works staff and their accomplishments and importance.
Yep. Well, I'll coordinate with Public Works on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I haven't read it yet, the first blush, but that's something we'd want to do is personalize it, you bet. Bring it right to home. Advisory boards and commissions. Have we sorted out Thomas Thorning to the drainage district yet?
No, not yet. So
Are we ready to do that?
next week, sir.
Okay. PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Dominique here, Public Information Officer. I don't have a whole lot to report today, other than the Census Bureau is going to be starting its field operations again. I think they just started that this week. That they're not going to be coming into contact with anybody like that. What they're doing is they're just going to be going like door to door to places where they couldn't mail out invitations because they don't receive mail at the house, and just dropping off a packet there. So people may be seeing them out and about, but that's what's going on with that. And then the census has requested Congress to extend the response time to October 31st, 2020, instead of the original deadline it was. So the report would not go to the president until April of 2021. Other than that, we're just continuing operations, still providing information to the public about COVID-19 through social media and various means. And that's it.
Any Commissioner Evers, anything for the PIO? For
No,
Brian?
sir.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Nor do I. Keep up the good work, Brian, and thank you for the sending out the updates on all the news flashes that come out.
Brian,
Thank
tell
you.
Megan hello for us, and we miss her at our meetings.
Yeah, I will. I'll let her know.
I forgot to do the shout out to Megan, darn it. And I know she's listening. All right, legislative update. Are there any?
Yes, sir. Just to keep you up to date, last week I joined a meeting with the local legislators and to see how they can support during the special session. The governor might be calling, I don't know, July or August. I don't know when, but certainly a special session will be called in this year to deal with the emergency. I know the state, when the legislature was going to meet, is going to be addressing for the most part the impacts of this emergency to their finances and their revenue aspect. But also, I believe there is an opportunity, and that was the point of, for me, to the legislators as to how they can provide some flexibility to counties during this emergency. So we're working with Deborah Manguia and again, Representative Dolan, Dolio, and Senator Hunt, and others as to how we can probably get their support to provide, again, some flexibility on counties on the current revenue.
Okay. Anything for Romero on legislative update, commissioners?
No.
Right. So that takes us into the briefing, public hearing decisions pending now. So we have a proclamation for Nurses Month 2020.
Yes, sir, and I believe we have a fantastic representation of our nurses here join us on what I call the Brady Bunch screen. So I don't know if before you can suggesting before you read the proclamation, give it the forum to introduce themselves, and then you may consider reading that proclamation.
It's a great idea. Who's going to introduce all the nursing?
Maybe I can see. I can probably go through the screen. I have a larger screen here, and first one that I have is Gretchen.
Hi.
If you can,
We're having a
if you can introduce yourself and tell what you do, that will be briefly.
Okay, great. My name is Gretchen Thaler, and I'm the Maternal Child Health Nurse Allied Partnership Manager, and I have been a public health nurse with Thurston County for 18 years. I worked nine years as a nurse home visitor, and then the last 9 years I have been in a supervisor or manager position. Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. Welcome.
The next that I have on the screen is Lindsay Son.
Hi, this is Lindsay. I'm a nurse with Nurse Family Partnership Program, and I'm currently serving Thurston County moms and families.
Wonderful.
Next on the screen, I have Whitney Myers.
Hi, my name is Whitney Myers, and I'm serving Thurston County, and I've been with NFP since the end of 2017.
Wow.
Next, I have Leslie Dolan.
Hi there, my name's Leslie. I'm new to NFP and visiting families in Lewis County.
All right.
Welcome to the family.
Next, I have Tiffany Griffin.
Hi, my name's Tiffany. I'm a nurse home visitor in Thurston County, and I've been with NFP for a little over a year now.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Next, I have Jillian King.
Sorry about that. I had to find the unmute button. I'm Jillian King, and I work with Nurse Family Partnership with Gretchen, and I serve Lewis County.
Thank you, Jillian.
Next, I have Diane Hamilton.
Hi, I am not with Nurse Family
Oh,
Partnership.
so I'll skip. Okay, sorry, thank you. So next, I have Lori Montoya.
Hi, I'm Lori. I have been with NFP for 4 years. I have been a supervisor for, I think, 9 months now, and I'm serving Lewis and Thurston County.
Thank you, Lori.
Next, I have Bonnie.
Hi, I work in a program called Children with Special Healthcare Needs, and I've been at the health department for 40 years.
Wow. Thank you, Bonnie, very much.
So then I have on the screen, I don't have the full name, but it's Sherman C.
Kathy Sherman.
Kathy Sherman, yep.
Kathy Sherman. I've been with NFP for the past 9 years, serving in Thurston County as an NFP nurse.
Wonderful, Kathy, thank you.
Next, I have two on the screen. Heidi Kelly, I believe.
Hello, I'm Heidi Kelly. I just joined the team 2 months ago from Fort Lewis. I just retired military. And I have Beth Cumberland here. Do you want to speak?
We're with the disease control and prevention team. So we are doing the disease investigations currently for COVID-19. And it's wonderful because thank you very much. We have a full team now with Heidi being on board.
Beautiful. Thank you both very much.
Next, I have, I believe it's Leslyn Acevedo.
Hi, my name is Leslyn Acevedo, and I'm just joined the team in March, and I work as a nurse home visitor with Gretchen, and I serve Mason County.
Wonderful. Thanks, Leslyn.
Next, I have Cecilia Perez.
Morning, it's Cecilia. I'm a nurse home visitor in Thurston and Lewis counties.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Next, I have Liz Davis. I think she's the director of that group. You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself. I am the Director of Community Wellness at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And first, I want to give Diane Hamilton an opportunity to introduce herself because she is a nurse, just not with public health.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a nurse. I kind of wear two hats. I am a critical care nurse at Providence St. Peter Hospital, and then I teach in the nursing program at St. Martin's University. Happy to be here. Thank you for the recognition.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for signing in.
I have one more, Sandy Ruiz.
Hi, my name is Sandy, and I serve mostly Lewis County. I am bilingual, and I'm serving the Spanish-speaking community there. Very glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, value added too, bilingual. Thank you, Sandy, very much.
Is anybody else that I have not seen or have not mentioned my screen that is here for the proclamation?
Or on the phone.
Or on the phone? I think that's it.
That's it. Okay, you want to read the proclamation, Commissioner Menser? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thurston County Proclamation Nurses Month. Whereas globally, the nursing profession marks a milestone in 2020, the 200th anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale. And whereas the American Nurses Association has declared 2020 as the International Year of the Nurse, a nod to nurses' sheer number, more than 4 million in the United States. And whereas thousands of nurses work in Washington State, including nearly 84,000 registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and advanced registered nurse practitioners, including staff nurses, nurse educators, nurse practitioners, school nurses, public health nurses, long-term care nurses, nurse managers, and nurses in many other practice areas. And whereas Thurston County nurses represent the front line of disease prevention, health promotion, and achieving optimal health in most health systems, including public health, especially as we fight the global COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas now more than ever, we need to support and recognize nurses for their contributions in crises and for their ongoing roles in meeting the needs of patients and their communities. And whereas nurses are public health heroes who make our communities safer and healthier and contribute to our community as advocates, educators, and providers of critical health services. And whereas Thurston County nurses are committed to serving our community 365 days a year and support many vulnerable individuals and their families with a caring and competent presence. And whereas Thurston County nurses' contributions are considered crucial to the delivery of effective, high-quality care with positive, lasting outcomes. And whereas nurses improve the quality of life in our communities through their tireless efforts to educate, support, and provide important resources to their patients. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims May 2020 as Nurses Month in Thurston County and calls upon all residents, communities, government agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, organizations, and businesses to celebrate nurses' accomplishments and efforts to improve the health of our residents and show our appreciation for Thurston County's nurses, not just during this month, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Adopted this 12th day of May 2020, Thurston County Board of County Commissioners.
Hey, this is where we would do a photo op. And so there, we got the photo op. Yay. And I'll post that. Commissioner Edwards, any comments?
Yes, I would just like to mention that as we receive medical care over the years from our doctors, just think how bland that would be without the caring and competence of the nurses that we truly interact with so much more than the doctors. So I'm not taking away from what the doctors bring to this, but just think how bleak it would be if we didn't have the care and competence from our nurses. That's all. I think it says it all. Thank you very much.
Yes. Commissioner Menser, any comments?
No, just thank you. And really thank you for all of you to be here. You know, we debated whether to have these in this sort of virtual environment, but to have, I mean, it's one of those examples of providing an opportunity where, you know, you might not have all been able to come to the physical meeting, but to have this many folks that are able to be here in this format is great. So it does seem, I'm glad we did it, and it does seem like it was a good decision and important to keep recognizing your work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just like to add that having two children of my own through the years growing up, and the trips to the doctors and to the emergency rooms, and with grandkids, the trips to the emergency rooms, I've witnessed a lot of love. And my numerous interactions as law enforcement in the city of Olympia, I witnessed lots of love, compassion, humor, tears, frightening experiences, and toughness from amazing men and women in this profession. And it's got to be amplified, I would think, during this COVID-19. And for you RNs, you nurses that are going into the homes and caring for mommies and babies, my heart just goes out to you. Thank you very, very much. You are so desperately needed. So thank you very much. This is just a small token of our appreciation. Thank you.
Commissioner, could I say a few
Certainly.
words? It seems to me that in the whole healthcare industry, always we highlight the doctors and everything else. But at least from my point of view, the structure that you bring just to have a comprehensive healthcare system, not just in the county, but across the state is you. And but most of all is the human contributions that you put in every single day that you do. Is the daily contact what you have with your clients in this case, or the patients on the hospitals. And for someone who has probably been going through a health emergency in a hospital, what we remember is the nurses. And what we remember is the caring that you have provided to all of us when we need it. So thank you so much for everything that you do on a daily basis.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for joining us.
And you're more than
Thanks for
welcome
having
to stay here and listen to the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, hang out with us for the day.
Yeah.
That'll bring tears to your eyes. Number 2 on the agenda is the right-of-way vacation on Boston Harbor.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, you reviewed this item last week, and this is the last step in the process on the right-of-way vacation. On January 14, 2020, the hearing examiners held a public hearing in which they forward that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners adopted the recommendations of the hearing examiners, and you approved Resolution 15873 with the caveat that before the final vacation process should be finalized, a compensation needed to be in place. That has been completed, and for your consideration is for you to take a final action to vacate this property. For your consideration, attached in your packet is a maps that gives you a depiction of what the vacation proposal is before you. As you can tell, this is an unopened right-of-way. It was dedicated back in 1907 to the county, and since then, the county has not been able to use and has not opened for public use. And I believe Chris Sisson is online if you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
I guess I'd just like to point out to the folks that are watching and questioning what we do all the time. This is taking a piece of property that is not contributing anything to the tax base for over 100 years. And that will be attached to a property. It will increase the value of the property it gets attached to, and hence we will bring in a tax base from that from now on. So just trying to, and I want to commend the treasurer for all of his work on getting rid of some of this stuff as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Nope. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve a resolution vacating a portion of right-of-way known as 69th Way Northeast and a portion of an alley in the plat of Boston Harbor as outlined in the hearing examiner's recommendation.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve a right-of-way vacation on portion of 69th Way Northeast, plat of Boston Harbor. Any further discussion? Nope. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Number 3, resolution to call for sealed bids.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, with the Department of Public Works. It's requesting authorization by the Board of County Commissioners to call for sealed bids to secure a contractor and conduct the construction to replace a culvert related to the fish barrier program. This is located on Elbow Lake Creek and is along the Peasner Road southeast. As you know, the Board of County Commissioners have invested real estate excise tax $2 to consistently, systematically start addressing some of the fish barriers across the county. Also, some of the recommendations the board has had in the past is how they can probably utilize some of the REIT $2 to somewhat of a seed money so we can secure additional funding. In this case, we have received $80,000 from the Settlement Recovery Funding Board as a grant, and that is issued by the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, also known as RCO. The total cost of the project is about $900,000, and the remainder cost, again, is coming from the real estate excise tax to REIT 2. And as soon as if the board authorizes going to bids, then we'll come back with an additional action for you to consider awarding the contract to the low bidder.
Okay. Any questions or comments of Romero about this? No. Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the resolution to call for sealed bids and authorize the county engineer to set the time, bid date and time for receipt and opening of said bids for the replacement of the Elbow Lake Creek culvert for fish passage enhancement for the Elbow Lake Creek at Peisner Road Fish Passage Project, CRP number 63014.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution for call for sealed bids for Elbow Lake Creek at Peisner Road Fish Passage Project. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Number 4, approval of an amendment.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, where the proposal is to amend the existing contract with the State of Washington Department of Health, and this is the Consolidated Contract. We have received an additional money in the total of $650,000, and this is related to the COVID-19 crisis. Is half of that is federal money and half of that is state money, and again is to help address the emergency, give us additional funding. The consolidated contract includes a lot of functions within the Public Health and Social Services Department. And that is the funnel in which we receive federal and state dollars. If you approve this contract, then the contract will have a maximum of $4,265,491, and it will go through December 31st, 2020. Is there any questions on that?
No, sir.
Nope. All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve amendment number 14 to the State of Washington Department of Health Consolidated Contract number CLH18264, increasing the contract by $650,000 for a revised maximum consideration not to exceed $4,265,491 for the duration of January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020 to provide COVID-19 emergency response. And authorize Director of Public Health and Social Services to sign the amendment and any future amendments that do not revise the approved dollar amount or duration of the contract by more than 10%.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve amendment number 14 to the Washington State Department of Health 18 to 20 consolidated contract. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Where it says for the duration of January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020, I am just curious, could we get an explanation as to why this starts off January 1st, 2018?
Shelley.
Yes, Commissioner. So our consolidated contract is for a 2-year duration, and then every 2 months, the contract is amended. So that's why that end date is in 2020.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And this is money in. It's extra money.
That's correct.
Money, yeah.
Always easier.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Approval of an interlocal agreement for the TRPC.
Speaking of money in, this proposal is for you to consider executing an interlocal agreement between the Thurston Regional Planning Council and the Community Plan and Economic Development Department CPED for $25,000. And that will be for CPED staff to provide planning support for the corridor study along Martin Way. This is a larger study. It has federal money associated with that. All the cities and the major cities and the county are participating in this study. And then we'll determine what will be the way and how we're gonna be improving or enhancing Martin Way that crosses all jurisdictions, unincorporated Thurston County, Olympia, Lacey. And I don't think we get to Tom Water, but yeah. And this again, we received $25,000, and that will be to support CPED staff on the planning efforts of this corridor study.
All right, any questions or comments?
No, sir.
No? Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve an interlocal agreement with Thurston Regional Planning Council for $25,000 to fund community planning and economic development staff work on the Martin Way Corridor Study Project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement with TRPC for $25,000 to fund CPED work on Martin Way, the corridor study project. Any further discussion? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Number 6 is the voucher list.
Yeah, for your consideration, approving the voucher list for the week of April 27. And I believe that was a combined amount of $2,614,720.54. I believe last week Commissioner Menser had some questions related to the voucher, and it was related to specific charges to credit card. I believe Robin Campbell answered that question to Commissioner Menser, and it was related specifically that's at the end of the month because we use this credit card to purchase many items in the county. So is there any additional questions, Commissioner Menser, that you may have on that particular issue?
No.
Okay.
And before we get to the motion, I had a very brief chat with Robin also. Thank you, Robin, for that. I have several questions regarding items in the budget, nothing to hold the voucher list up. But just questions from my digging a little bit deeper as to what exactly this means and what that means, a few of those. But with that, we're going to chat offline. So I'm ready for a motion.
Move to approve the voucher list for the week of April 27, 2020 for a combined amount of $2,614,720.54.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list for the week of April 27, 2020. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Number 7, approval contract with Capital City Press.
Yeah, Commissioners, you have not reviewed this item last week. This is a new item for you. And this really a little bit of timing and an emergency related to COVID-19. And this is for you to consider entering into a service contract with Capital City Press to print enhanced envelopes, return envelopes necessary to prevent and respond to the coronavirus. So this will be peel and stick envelopes in security sleeves. It will be used for the upcoming 2020 election. There is a time sensitivity to this because we need to have these envelopes in place by June 5th, 2020 in order to start mailing those ballots to residents, to Thurston County residents who live outside of the county for the I believe the primary elections coming up in August. So this is going to be funded by the COVID-19 federal funds, and it will be a total cost of $76,973. And again, you have not reviewed this item, but again, this is an emerging issue, and I will encourage the board to consider approving this contract.
Questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess my question would be, did we go out to bid for this, and are we kind of in line with everything? That's.
I believe under the current emergency, you can bypass this, but Robin can elaborate on this.
So the board has exempted any materials used for elections from our purchasing policy in accordance with state law. And under federal law, the emergency need overrides the requirement to go to bid. The auditor uses this contractor under a normal contract that was bid under our normal bidding process, but thought that a separate contract would be better in this instance, so that we could easily track it and claim it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mr. Minster, any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
I'll move to approve a contract with Capital City Press for printing of election ballot return envelopes, estimated at $76,973, and authorize the Thurston County Auditor to sign the contract.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a contract with Capital City Press for printing of election ballot return materials. Any further discussion? Oh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Number 8, approve the collective bargaining agreement between Thurston County and OPEIU, Local 18, or Local number 8.
Yeah, you have not had the opportunity to review this item either. And the reason that is before you today is to align with the payroll. They will ease the implementation of this contract. And this is a 3-year contract that goes from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. And is between, as Commissioner Hutchins stated, between the county and the OPEIU, Local 18, with the juvenile detention employees. And have just about the same terms and conditions in every other bargaining unit contract that you have approved in the last few months.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners? Okay. I'm ready for a motion.
Move to approve the collective bargaining agreement between Thurston County and the OPEIU Local number 8, Juvenile Detention, for the term of January 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the collective bargaining agreement between Thurston County and the OPEIU, local number 8, juvenile detention. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. And number 9, setting a public hearing.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, and this is for your consideration to set up public hearing for you to renew ordinance number 15792 that is related with the interim emergency housing ordinance. And there was a couple of discussions last week, some discussion last week. And I'm going to address this in a couple of items because something during the week has come up as well. And first is Commissioner Edwards asked if we can have the language specifically related to what this ordinance is going to do. And that is let me read what is proposed, and certainly that is for consideration. The proposal renewal will extend the interim regulations to December 25th, 2020. The ordinance offers waivers to some existing requirements for homeless encampments in order to facilitate effective and timely services in response to the homeless public health crisis as established by resolution number H2 2018. That's a Board of Health resolution. So I believe that was a request by Commissioner Edwards to make sure that this is out there and this is a proposed language for you. Also, in this past week, you have received a letter from Mr. Tibetan recommending adding some language on the proposed ordinance related to the ADUs, that's the auxiliary dwelling units, and that was an email sent to all of you commissioners by Robin Courts, that's Commissioner Edwards' assistant, forwarding that recommendations to you that was sent on Wednesday, May 6th, last Wednesday. So I have sent that to staff, and they have returned with a proposed language that is included in your packet, I believe. And I apologize because I was hoping to be highlighted in red, which the red didn't come. But certainly Jennifer Davis is here to help us go through this process and maybe having a conversation as to how staff is planning to address the recommendation from Mr. Tibetan on this particular ordinance.
Sure, I'm open to any questions. I know the request had to do with adding in some language that would provide for accessory dwelling units as an integral part of this emergency housing ordinance. Those are somewhat unrelated issues. It's true that accessory dwelling units are a source of affordable housing, and I think it's an important source and is why that the board took action last week to prioritize it as one of the top 3 code amendments you have staff working on during this current docket cycle. So we are actively working on an effort to amend our codes to potentially allow for rural accessory dwelling units in the county. And that's something that we're planning to hopefully bring to the board for action toward the end of this year, 2020. So that's sort of in the hopper. The request was to get kind of ahead of that process and to somehow add that into this emergency housing ordinance, which sort of is trying to address a different set of issues. I tried to bridge the gap by offering some additional whereas language, which I believe Romero said was provided to you in a couple of places, which basically just simply acknowledges the board's commitment to exploring accessory dwelling units as a source of affordable housing. But it doesn't provide any emergency or interim code changes. I guess my recommendation would be to let that process play out as you've docketed it this year with the full public process.
So I apologize on the copy of the ordinance that I gave you didn't highlight the proposed language, but I can probably walk you through what those are. On page 2, the second whereas from the top is what has been added. So if you want to review that. And also on page 3, number 4, from the top, also that whereas has been added. So, and again, I apologize, I was hoping to highlight so easily recognizable. So those are the two whereas the staff has added to address Mr. Tibetan's feedback.
I have a question.
Yeah, hang on just a second, Gary. I'm looking at I just want to see the second whereas. On page 2 is the second whereas.
Yeah.
And where's the other one?
Is on page 3, and that would be the 4th from the top.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess just for clarification, I opposed this ordinance or this resolution when this was originally put into place. And when was that again?
That was in June of 2019, a year ago.
In June of 2019.
So in fact, this ordinance ends on June 25th, 2020. And the way you establish the interim emergency ordinance is the first is 1 year, and then you have the option to renew every 6 months. So in this case, the proposal is for you to consider renewing this emergency ordinance, and I believe that is the preferred approach. And instead of changing the actual code, and that was, I believe, the direction of the board itself on a previous conversation when we were having the docketing process discussion. So since every time, remember the interim marijuana regulation, similar to that. It was renewed many times every 6 months, and before the board can take an action and renew in this particular ordinance or regulations, then you need to hold a public hearing. So this is the first step for you to set that public hearing.
Okay, based on that, I want to make sure that I don't, I guess, vote against something that I would normally support. And I'm very supportive of the ADU process in the unincorporated area of Thurston County. But it's my understanding that this extension of this ordinance does not allow for ADUs in unincorporated Thurston County. And even though we recognize it is part of the solution to affordable housing, but I just want to make sure that's correct. And I guess I'd ask Jennifer if I got that right.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you're renewing an interim ordinance is about making a different and more streamlined process to potentially allow for homeless encampments, still with all of the review processes in place, but allowing some waivers about where those could maybe go through the process. And Kelsey's on the line as well for specific questions about what the interim ordinance purpose and content is.
Okay.
The ADU issue is somewhat separate, and the only reason we added these whereases were to try to respond to this constituent concern about the fact that this is yet another source of important housing. So yeah, the purpose of this interim ordinance remains the emergency response to homelessness and the encampments issue. That is not the central goal of this ordinance to provide for ADUs. The pathway to provide for ADUs, you've already docketed, you've already said you're interested in and committed to that. And we're in the middle of that process right now to start to bring that information to the Planning Commission and then to you. You don't need to include anything about ADUs in this ordinance to allow that pathway to continue. But you do need to renew this ordinance if you want to maintain the waivers for the homeless encampment issue.
Okay, so I guess I was hoping for a compromise that I'm not in favor of homeless camps in the unincorporated area of Thurston County. I am very much in favor of ADUs in Thurston County. But it sounds like I'm hearing we will continue the bureaucratic process to develop ADU abilities sometime down the road. We don't know where that's going to go or how long that's going to take. We don't have a timeline on that. So I am still opposed to homeless encampments in unincorporated Thurston County and seeing no relief for citizens that are asking to have the ability to put ADUs on their property and hence alleviate some of the problem of unaffordable housing, and I refer to it as unaffordable because about 30% of the cost of housing is government costs that we attach onto the cost of that housing. So I'm going to stick with my opposing this particular renewal of this ordinance.
Okay, can we, Josh is in the waiting room. Could we get Josh to weigh in?
Hold on, let me check him in.
And then I have a comment or two. And you do too as Commissioner?
Yeah, Josh is in.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get all this technology figured out here.
How about you hang your phone? Hang up your phone. Because there's an echo here.
Left the conference.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we still hear you. Did you want to comment on this
Well, I
then?
can't hear any of you, and that's my problem.
You do too as Commissioner?
Yeah, Josh is in.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out in the waiting room. Sorry about that.
Yes.
But I did hear the conversation, and I get all this.
So you may want to turn your volume down. In your phone. Hang up your phone. Because there's an echo here.
Left the conference.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we still hear you. Did you want to comment on this
I
then?
can't hear any of you, and that's my
Hey Josh, can you turn the volume down of your
Thank you for hanging out in the waiting room. Sorry about that.
Yes.
But I did hear the conversation, and I get all this.
So you may want to turn your volume down. In your phone. Hang up your phone.
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we still hear you. Did you want to comment on this
I
then?
can't hear any of you, and that's
Hey Josh, can you turn the volume down of your
Okay. While we're waiting for Josh to get that sorted out, my question for Jennifer is, this, and or Kelsey, this is the interim regulation for emergency homeless encampments that we're considering renewing again. And so at the request of a constituent, Mr. DeVeton, these whereases were added. And so, and I just want to understand this, with these added, they're two different tracks, they're two different topics. And so it almost, because we're already tracking the ADUs and you're working on it, we prioritize that.
Yes.
But to add in here, is it almost like at the federal government level or even at the state level, I'm going to pass a bill, but put all this other stuff in too, because it's important to me, but I don't want it to be in conflict or to have staff doing double work on it. If that's going to be the case, I don't want to include those whereases. If it streamlines or helps the ADU process and it doesn't confound anything by putting it in here, I'm okay with that too.
I would say that it is neutral on the process. It does not create work for staff by adding those two whereases. Those whereases are basically just a way to telegraph to the community that you're interested in ADUs as well as a source of affordable housing. You're still going to go through the decision-making process and public hearings on ADUs, and that is going to be a 2020 project. So we do have a rough timeline for that. We hope to bring that to you toward the end of this year. I don't think the whereasers, they don't help or hinder that process. It's basically an opportunity for you to add something to this interim ordinance if you wish. I think if you didn't do it, it doesn't affect the ADU project whatsoever.
So it's just a bit of redundancy though. And if Mr. DeVeton wants that in there, and just based on what your feedback is, I'm okay with it being there. Josh, you're back.
Sorry about that. I feel like got stuck in a space-time continuum.
Yeah, you did. So,
I'm listening. I think that Jennifer's got it handled. Again, I agree that, we want to serve the citizens and the ADU process is moving forward. We do have a timeline for it, as Jennifer has outlined, and we have a priority from the board. The emergency housing ordinance, I'm not sure if it's already been said or not, but it does not allow for encampments immediately in Thurston County. It allows for an opportunity for someone to apply. And at this point, no one has ever applied using this code language, just as a reminder to the board and everyone listening.
And this is, again, this is to set a public hearing.
Correct.
Commissioner Menser, do you have any thoughts or opinions or questions?
Well, just to clarify the record, it was not my preferred approach to up this interim ordinance every 6 months. I preferred to have the board authorized permanently to have the authority to make these waivers if and when there was an appropriate case to do so. I was outvoted on that, so we're going to go through this every 6 months or whatever, and that's fine. I don't have any heartburn over the ADU language. I don't agree that it should have been included, so I agree with that. So I'd like to just deal with that. There's a lot of nuances to that issue, and I want to have all that information in front of me before I make any decisions about ADUs in the rural county. So I'm okay with the proposal with the amendment, with the amended whereases.
With the whereases?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Commissioner Edwards has another question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, not so much as a question as a comment. We are dealing here with a new reality coming down the pipe. That new reality is where the citizens in this state are going to choose to live. I think by not having the ability to have families have ADUs on their property causes congestion in the urban core unnecessarily. And I think you're going to find that young professionals are finding that they can remotely work. That keeps them from driving on roads that we won't have to upgrade so much. It'll bring the population out of the urban centers where they now are more susceptible to things like this COVID-19 virus. Now we're finding that even children are affected by something to do with this COVID virus. Brand new. We don't have all the facts on that. We had a briefing today from Dr. Yu. But I believe we're missing the boat by not thinking ahead and giving the citizenry the option to possibly move out of the urban core and at the same time recognize that this is a solution to unaffordable housing, or one of the solutions to unaffordable housing. So,
well, we're not missing the boat because we're working on it. Our staff's working on it. We're getting there.
If we work on it, there'll be a lot of people die between now and the time we get this done. And I'm not saying this is going to solve the problem. I'm just saying we're continuing to work within the box. We have a new reality that we're faced with as a society. And I think we better start thinking, let's get out of the box. Let's think of solutions for our community. So that, for the above stated reasons, that's why I'm opposed to this.
Okay, Commissioner Menser, you had your hand up.
Well, the reference was to having the code allows for family member units. I just wanted to make that clear, which addresses the issue of having a grandmother or a family member. And if you're talking about just having people throwing an ADU on a property and then having an unrelated person renting that out, that raises a whole different series of questions that need to be examined. So.
Okay, so this motion is for setting a public hearing.
Yep.
And so is there a motion?
I move to set a public hearing for June 9th, 2020 at 3 p.m. or soon thereafter at the Thurston County Courthouse Building 1 in room 280 to accept public comment on proposed amendments on the renewal of ordinance number 15792.
15792, okay. Do you want me to second that, Gary?
Well, I'm not going to second it, but I do want to have further discussion.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Now is there discussion? That's yes. New discussion, not just repetitive?
Yep, there's new discussion.
Okay.
New discussion, I just want to respond to Commissioner Menser's comments that a housing unit for a family member is allowed. And I realize that. The problem is with the current code, when the family member moves out or becomes, they are deceased, then that unit has to be torn down. It cannot be utilized unless it is a family member unit. I think it refers to mother-in-law and parents and such. We do not have a mechanism in place to enforce anything. It's poorly thought out, the restrictions that we put on those particular housing units that are allowed. And because of that is why I want to take advantage of this situation to allow ADUs in the unincorporated area, and let's get on with it because we're hurting the citizens by not doing it. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Josh, Jennifer, or Kelsey, anything to add? Nope, okay. So it's been moved and seconded, and we've had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion carries to set the public hearing, so we can hear from the public. And number 10, setting a public hearing for critical area determination.
Yeah, Commissioners, you received a briefing last week related to this item. And this is amends the Thurston County Code Section 24.50.070 of the Critical Area Ordinance, in which the validity investing period of the critical area determination goes from 1 to 3 years, and that is in alignment to any other critical area permits that we issue to citizens.
All right. Questions? I have questions. Number one, if we do, we're setting public hearings, and this one is for June the 2nd. Logistically, what would that look like for a public hearing on 2 topics, and one comes a week later?
So Commissioner, will probably, at this point, the state, counties will not open at local government until phase 3. So that most likely will take us beyond the current order by the governor of stay at home, stay healthy, which ends on May 31st, 2020. So most likely we'll be conducting these public hearings, virtual public hearings. And we'll make sure the public can have access to send written testimony to you. And we'll make every single effort for the public to participate either via Zoom meeting or a conference call, but we'll make an effort to make sure the public have access to provide testimony to you related to this matter.
But are we under a timeline where we can't push these out until the courthouse is open?
Well, the first one, the one you just passed.
Well, that expires, right?
2-1 expires, so time is of the essence on that. And the other one, in terms of the timing, I would probably like have Brett to respond to that question.
Go ahead, Brett. Welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Brett Burris, and I'm a Building and Planning Manager for Community Planning and Economic Development. The time sensitivity, I may be a bit exaggerated stating that, but it is due to the possibility of using the new critical area determination vesting period and associate that with gopher review and vesting. So gopher season starts June 1 and the public hearing is set for June 2nd. So in an attempt to provide an opportunity for citizens to use this application tool to their advantage, there is a bit of a timeline associated.
Okay. All right. Commissioner
Edward has a question.
Yeah, I was going to you next. Go ahead, Gary.
I guess I just want to take this opportunity to commend both Josh and Brett for putting this together so that some of our ordinance activity is in line with other issues. And I can tell you, by extending this from 1 year to 3 years, it gives citizens quite a break should something happen in their situation where they're not able to move forward with their particular project within that normal 1 year period. So I just want to thank our staff folks for their hard work and recognizing this and trying to come up with solutions for the citizenry. Thank you very much.
Well said. Yes, thank you both very much. Commissioner Menser, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Ready for a motion?
As you may recall, if I may, Commissioners, remember there's a recommendation by the Planning Commission that it was a split decision. And the split decision was the minority report was urging the commissions to consider a 5-year as opposed to a 3-year. And you heard the recommendations from staff to go with a 3-year because that's in alignment to the rest of the permits that we issue. Just for the record.
We discussed that last week.
Right.
Good, thank you for that clarification or reminder. Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Move to set a public hearing for Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020 at 3 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard in Building 1, Room 280 of the Thurston County Courthouse to accept public testimony on a proposed revision to Section 24.50.070 of the Thurston County Critical Area Ordinance, changing the validity/vesting of critical area determination from 1 year to 3 years.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to set a public hearing, code amendment for critical area determination applications, validity and vesting period. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. And now we're going to take we're moving into the commissioner items, so we're going to take about a 15-minute break. 15 minutes. It's 10:30. It's 10:35. We'll be back at 10:50.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to squeeze in one extra. I didn't kind of get my last comment in on the ADU issue. I just wanted to say for those listening, I agree with some of the points Commissioner Edwards made, which is why I supported that docket item. I think I ranked it as a fairly high priority. So I do believe there are flexibility components that we could add to our code. I just want people to be clear about that. I just wasn't supportive of trying to squeeze it into an unrelated emergency ordinance on the encampment waivers. So
yeah, that's what I was asking, if it was like a pork belly ad, if it was just redundant, which sounds like it is.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back at 10:50. Thank you very much for pausing. To the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for May 12, 2020. And again, if you want to join in via conference call, the number is 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234. And now we're getting into the commissioner items, and the first one is RCO grant for City of Olympia, a follow-up discussion.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is an item that you reviewed maybe 3 weeks ago. And this is related to an RCO grant. The City of Olympia is considering applying. The purpose of this grant is to request funding from the RCO to recover some of the costs they incurred by purchasing a piece of land along Yelm Highway, also known as the Spooner's Strawberry Farm. So during this conversation, there is a requirement by the RCO grant. Any proposed application needs to be sent out a notice to the legislative authority, in this case is the county, since this parcel is located in the urban area, urban growth area for Olympia, but it's unincorporated Thurston County. You had a brief discussion, well, it was not a brief discussion, it was a discussion related to how I believe Commissioner Edwards would like to send a letter requesting to set aside some mitigation land related to the pocket gopher, considering this area is pocket gopher habitat. Thank you for the word. And also Commissioner Minzer asked me to reach out to the City of Olympia. And I did reach out to the newly appointed City Manager, Jay Burney. And attached to that is the correspondence that I received at the end of your packet, is what I received. I believe Commissioner Hutchins wanted to see where and when they're planning to implement this park. And so many different words. They're in the process of reaching out to the community as to how the master plan should be implemented on this property, which is slated to be a park owned and operated by the City of Olympia. They don't expect to have a break ground on phase 1. It is unknown at this point what phase 1 will be, because they have not concluded on how this park will be developed to a larger extent. It will not occur until probably 2024. But also on this email stated that may change depending on the COVID-19 emergency, and that may fluctuate. Also in this email that I received, they do acknowledge this property is in the urban growth area, and they will be sure to adhere to comply with all the county and city permits requirements, including those that are related to the pocket gopher habitat. I believe that is the direction that I received from you last when you discussed this item, and I just open for the board's conversation on this.
Commissioner Minzer, start with you. Anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards.
Yes. And I guess this would be back maybe to the county manager. Currently, this property is on the tax rolls, is that right?
Yes.
As far as you know?
Yeah.
And so they're paying their fair share. What happens when the City of Olympia takes ownership of this property? Does it come off of the tax rolls?
As a local jurisdiction, yes, but the City of Olympia already owns the property.
Okay, so it's not on the tax rolls now?
Yeah,
because they've already purchased
They
it.
already purchased the property. This application is for them to recover some of the costs associated with the purchase.
Is there anything in there that helps us recover that loss of tax revenue, especially we're not gonna see the benefit of a park there for quite a number of years, is my understanding. Or are they gonna lease that back maybe to the Berry Farm to continue some kind of agricultural production for a while?
Yes, in the meantime, the Spooner's Farm is continually operating, and in fact, I just saw the sign, they're gonna be opening up to sell strawberries here in the next 2-3 weeks. So they have leased back to the Spooner's Farm owners to continue to practice that activity until the city of Olympia implement the park. So
Okay.
that continues on.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a good follow-up. Anything further? No? Okay.
So,
Number 2, Orca.
So I assume there's no action on this. Thank you.
Yep, no action. And they were just doing their due diligence and notifying the county.
Yep, that is correct.
So Orca, a citizen request and follow-up discussion.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a little time on this item, and let me see, because it's lengthy, and it's something that just came up in the last, I believe in the last week. So I'm trying to myself get up to speed and all the different elements related to that. So included on your packet, there is a lot of correspondence, because I received correspondence from Robin Courts, that's assistant to Commissioner Edwards, on a correspondence that we started with Mr. Eric Casino. I did not receive any direct correspondence from Mr. Casino, so, and again, all the emails is included in your packet are related to Robin Courts, who has extended that information to me. So there is a few copies of that, but I'd like for you to concentrate on the last piece of document, a copy that I included in your packet. And that is dated from Robin again to me, which is dated Monday, May 11, 2020, at 4:35 in the afternoon. This is going to be the best way that I can go through on this. So, Mr. Casino submitted a document related to the operations of Orca, as well as the financial aspects of Orca. And also as a result of that, the executive director from Orca submitted a document on Friday, and she called me on Friday as well, raising some concerns about some of the statements made by Mr. Casino on this document. And I believe all of us received a response from the executive director from Orca related to some of the items that Mr. Casino raised on that piece of paper. And also on this document that I'm going to go through, there is additional feedback from Mr. Casino based on the responses that we received from Orca on Friday. So a lot of moving pieces. I am not going to walk you through every single item and every single response. I believe you received those in advance. I hope you have the chance to read it. But for the public's benefit, I'm just going to highlight on key elements of the matter. So, Mr. Casino raised the point, Thurston County has been in partnership among other 6 counties in the region for the last 50 years related to the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency, also known as ORCA. He makes a point that perhaps this is very costly, and also he makes points of that is unnecessary regulatory body that is not serving the purpose of to the citizens of the county. He makes a point of the ORCA is receives from the county $115,562 a year. And he makes also a statement that perhaps those services will be better suited if the Department of Ecology can provide those services to the county. As a result of this, he's suggesting that perhaps the county walks away from the interlocal agreement that we have with ORCA among all the 6 counties. Also, Mr. Casino, in so many different words, he makes a statement that perhaps the services by the Department of Ecology can be provided to the county at no cost. And that is a different perspective the ORCA provides. They said it will be interesting to see if the Department of Ecology provide the services at no cost. Mr. Casino respond back again. This is stated that he has reached out to somebody in ecology. I'm going to leave names out of this conversation for now. And stating that he has confirmed that perhaps the Department of Ecology will provide those services at no cost to the county. Also, Mr. Casino states that the ORCA is punitive and inconsistent on their enforcement efforts, direct impact in the citizens of the county. The response from ORCA is we're for the most part, compliant-driven, which means we are typically responding to a complaint from one of your constituents. If we find a violation, we regularly educate. Only a small percentage of our actions result in a notice of violation. Also, within this document, Mr. Casino makes an argument of the membership of ORCA. Right now is 9 members, of which 6 are county commissioners representing the 6 counties. They're currently formed of ORCA, plus council members from the larger jurisdictions, cities in the region that will be Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. That makes the 9. Mr. Casino makes the point of there is only 1 vote for the Thurston County region. The counter argument is no, there is actually 4 votes in the Thurston County region because the Thurston County region includes the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. Let me see what else I can highlight from this long document that I have included for you. He also makes an assessment, complaint that the assessment in 2016 it was 45 cents per resident. In 2017, increased to 77 cents, and the 2020, 81.5 cents has increased in terms of the assessment, which totals the 115,562.46 cents. The raise of the assessment was addressed during the budget conversation, and probably Robin can suggest how that assessment in ORCA can probably go. But again, this is what Mr. Casino is highlighting. And again, I'm not planning to respond to this. I'm just framing the issue before you. Let me see what else I can highlight to this. He speaks about, let me read this paragraph. Typically, ORCA's intimidation will start with an on-site visit, looking for violations of the Olympic Region Clean Air Act regulation carries a civil penalty of up to $14,915. You might be assessed more than 1 violation. Strict liability is the standard. The response to that from ORCA is ORCA is a regulatory agency. Even after years of community outreach programs, vouchers, education letters, and other board education attempts, violations continue. We may find violators. However, not all violators are issued a notice of violation. Many correct the situation, which resolves our issues. There are some egregious violations that we do stop immediately, like burning garbage, and that is the most common violation. And again, that's the response from him. And let me go to the bottom line of this and just the conclusion. And again, there is a lot of information, but those are the key points of what Mr. Casino is stating. And Mr. Casino states that perhaps the county, as well as the other municipal jurisdictions, should consider walking away from ORCA by walking away from the interlocal agreement that we have, He cites some RCWs related to what the authority the county has related to this request. I shared that with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is prepared to give you at least our perspective in terms of what that authority the county has. But before I give that to Elizabeth and open for a conversation, let me read just the conclusion. And the conclusion from Mr. Casino, as well as the conclusion from ORCA. The conclusion is ORCA costs Thurston County taxpayers a huge amount of money every year only to subjugate ourselves to arbitrary regulation and enforcement. Our participation is not required by law, and the work they do would be completely performed by the Department of Ecology. We can save $115,562.46. This in subject years, and get highly competent service from the Department of Ecology if we leave ORCA. If the rest of the members also leave, we are all gain from the dissolution of ORCA through disbursement of their assets. We have no reason to believe we will actually have some worse air quality. So let's save ourselves some money and frustration. Thurston County is developing the next biennium budget. Now it's time to delete this line item from the budget. The response to that from ORCA, with ORCA you retain local control. The amount of dollars returned to the citizens of Thurston County has exceeded the county's obligation to ORCA. Further, Ecology will charge Thurston County 100% of the cost of replacing the legally required services currently provided by ORCA. ORCA is responsive to the citizens and businesses in Thurston County. History has shown that ORCA's constituent response time and problem resolution are quicker if it led to Ecology. So in all this, this is all related to the Clean Air Act. That's the federal act that all of us have to comply. So I'll stop there. If you have any questions related to this document, I can certainly dive in again in some of the details, but if I may, maybe I can ask Elizabeth to hear her perspective related to some of the RCWs that Mr. Casino highlighted on his correspondence.
Yeah, that'd be good, good to start. Next, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have reviewed the documents that Romero just went over. And what I can share with you is what your options are in terms of the requests presented. You do have, under the statutes, there is a pathway if you choose to withdraw. You do have authority to withdraw as a single county. If you were to go down that pathway, you would likely end up under the authority of Department of Ecology unless you wanted to create your own independent authority. So that's the first consideration. If you want to pull out of ORCA, you are going to be under another umbrella, or you could create your own umbrella. And then there's some steps that need to happen with that process. Some procedural steps that you would have to take. And it would be over a process of about 6 months at least that withdrawal would take place. And during that 6-month period, you would still be under the jurisdiction of ORCA until the county was fully transferred to another entity, either its own or under Department of Ecology. So that's the big picture statutory framework for your options to, if you wanted to withdraw from ORCA.
Thank you. That's Elizabeth Petrich, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. Commissioner Menser, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a legal question for Elizabeth. So my understanding, and I confirm if I'm right or wrong, my understanding is that if we did this, we could not pull unincorporated Thurston County, but our decision would pull Olympia, Tumwater, and Lacey, the entire county, including municipalities, out of ORCA. It couldn't be pieced out by the county versus the cities.
No, it would just be Thurston County withdrawing. I mean, there is an opportunity for everybody to withdraw, but that each member would have to take independent action to withdraw.
Orca told me that Thurston, Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater could not remain within Orca if Thurston County pulled out of Orca. We basically have that authority to make that decision for them.
Okay, that's a question that I haven't looked at, and I don't have an answer for you, but I'd be happy to look into that.
That was the same information I was given, that the county's the lead agency and the others would have to follow suit whatever we chose.
Okay, well, I can, if you want me to look into that, or if you're comfortable with the information you have, but I don't have that conclusion myself yet.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
I guess I've asked about this over the years, and like it's been brought out here, this has been in place for 50 years now. And we're going into some very tight times because of the virus that we're facing today. So we're going to be all, later on this week, we're going to be in the middle of budget things. We all know we're going to be taking a reduction. And there's a couple things that I would like to have looked into in regard to this. And it sounds like all those answers are not ready to be discussed at this point in time. But I would like to have a review of all the stated RCWs to see if the statements from either the citizen bringing this forward or from Orca, see if they're correct, or maybe they're both correct. I don't know the answer to that at this point in time. But there's some sense that if this was a user-funded activity, then I guess the violator ends up paying the price. It sounds like Thurston County in total, including the city, spends about $500,000 every year on this particular activity. I'm just wondering if that makes good sense in light of all our budget shortfalls that we're going to be considering. If, in fact, Department of Ecology was able to do this job. Now, our citizen that brought this forward is saying that they'll pick this up at no cost. Well, I would certainly like to know what that meant. I'd also like to know what it would take for us to create our own board. Maybe that could just be one of our committees of the Board of County Commissioners or Board of Health. And we could look at it with the existing staff, whatever we've got left when we're all done with this virus business. So there's just some things that I'd like to look into and see if we couldn't save money. I mean, we're at 77 cents per citizen, I think, for this budget cycle. It's undoubtedly just going to continue going up. And if we can save the taxpayers money, I think it behooves us to look into this. The other piece of it, and I asked this question one time before, was when we have to make this payment. And now cash flow is going to become a big issue, it sounds like, for us to keep afloat, if you will. And here it's brought out that we can pay quarterly. And we don't know where this whole thing is going. So at least if we're going to continue on while we're looking into what it would take to change horses, if you will, I would at least recommend that we just pay our quarterly dues so that we, if that's correct, so that we're not funding for something that we're not getting down the road. So that's just from a budgetary perspective. I'm trying to watch out for our budget as much as we possibly can, but I would certainly like to know if the RCWs listed in the correspondence that we've been receiving are in fact doable, and if they are doable, what would be the adverse effect or the plus effect on the taxpayers from the county. So that's kind of where I'm looking for. And I have to commend Mr. Casino for bringing this forward. I think it's great anytime citizens point out where they feel we have duplication. And I feel it's our responsibility to look into those type of points that are brought forward by citizens to see if we can't save the taxpayers money in any of the realms that we deal with. So that's kind of where I'm at on this.
Well, to answer one of your questions, Commissioner Edwards, is Fran McNair, the executive director of ORCA, told me last night it's coming up on the board's agenda this next meeting, and there will be no increase, or there will be voting on no increase for July 2020 through June 30, 2021. So yeah, you mentioned the costs go up. You know, they have, but the last one they had was substantial. I forget how many cents, 30 cents or something like that, because it had not been increased in 11 years. So that kind of makes sense, but no increase is being planned. I don't know how you guys are gonna vote, Commissioner Menser, next time, but it's being proposed, no increase. And one thing that I don't really want to do, and I didn't know we had the option of, I thought the options were ORCA or Department of Ecology, and didn't know we could start or create our own. But one thing that I don't want to do is send our staff, who are strapped as it is, and we're coming into further cuts this year, is to send staff on down a rabbit hole and getting them tied up on other things. So I don't like the idea of giving up local control or surrendering it to the state, and I don't predominantly trust the state. And I was under the same impression that if we leave, the cities, they have to come with us in the tailwind. They don't get the option of voting in or out, but we'll get that information from Elizabeth. And I know the local jurisdictions don't desire giving up local control. They want to stay within ORCA. And ORCA, when I was on the board for 2 years in 17 and 18, they were their mantra was, when it comes to enforcement, was educate, mitigate, and collaborate with the public. And a lot of fines that were imposed were reduced or suspended completely. It wasn't a money-making type of venture for them. And so I don't trust the state to take care of our local concerns or handle our local matters or issues on a timely fashion. And I have no idea if it is free or if it's not free. I can't imagine the state giving the county services for free. When I asked ORCA, or Fran and Robert Moody yesterday, how many complaints they received a year, they said they received about 375 complaints a year, but they don't go out and seek and find. These are people calling in potential violators, and that's when they go out and educate and mitigate and collaborate with the folks. And so when I look at, follow the money, I also look at follow the motivation. And I asked them how many citizens have they had come to them and say ORCA should be disbanded, you should be gone. And in 11 years, that's Fran's tenure. She said never. So when I see Mr. Casino coming forward with these allegations and or concerns, I have to think, what is this? Where's it come from? And so there is a personal history there, and I won't go into that. It's all public record, but I won't go into that here and now. But I don't want to have our staff chasing tails and invisible rabbits, and that's where I'm at currently. Commissioner Menser.
I just wanted to say that based on the idea of us running our own clean air agency, if we're talking about $115,000, ORCA is made up of engineers, air quality specialists, and administrative staff. $115,000 wouldn't even cover the salary of one engineer that's qualified to do air quality permitting. So the idea that we're getting screwed financially by paying that amount of money for the amount of expertise and monitoring and administration that we get is kind of crazy. Department of Ecology, I don't know the answer to whether or not they would charge us or not. Eric's emails was referenced an individual, I know we weren't naming names, but who recently retired, like in the last few weeks. So I know Mr. Casino is trying to provide us accurate information to his best of his ability. And I think I was asking Orca, why are you being told one thing and maybe Eric was told another thing? And the only thing they could come up with is maybe it was a changeover in the person that they're dealing with at Department of Ecology. So that might be useful information to have. What services would they provide at what cost? But again, the local control issue, I know Commissioner Edwards is usually an advocate for not trusting the state and not believing the state does things correctly. So giving up, and it just happens to be that we have, Eric makes the point about local control in one vote, but yeah, I mean, it just so happens that the three biggest cities have a vote and we have all three of those. It was just two, and I think Tumwater just not edged out Port Angeles just last year. So we just added a vote. So we have a lot of local control in this organization relative to the entire Western Washington counties that we represent. So based on all of that, I'm skeptical that this is going to pencil out. And then the last thing I want to say is just that this is a tricky situation. I get it that Thurston County taxpayers are paying, it's tax dollars from Thurston County that would go to this assessment, but we do represent as commissioners the entire county. And I've heard from all three municipal jurisdictions that they do not want to be removed from ORCA. And our decision would necessarily, if it's correct that our decision would necessarily require that, I think we have to think about that. We have to think about it. It plays with our dual role as a county in the sense that we're managing certain resources of a piece of the county, but we're making decisions that affect every single resident of the county, and we're responsible to all of those residents. So I would definitely want to hear, if this were contemplated by the board, I would definitely want us to have direct input from Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia about why they do or don't, what it is about ORCA that they support or that they would see as a detriment, and what the nuances are from their jurisdiction's perspective.
Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I'm not opting one way or the other at this particular time. I'm just responding to a citizen's inquiry. And as far as citizens, wanting to do away with ORCA or what, I don't know anything about that. But anytime a bureaucracy has been in place for 50 years, it becomes just kind of an accepted norm. So I don't know that that's good or bad, but it's probably never even been looked at, because I know some of the questions that I asked several years ago about ORCA, just in the normal course of reviewing budget and expenditures, the answers that I was given, well, like, we have to pay it now type of a thing. I didn't know there was a quarterly process that was available. I've heard several, well, I don't know for sure, or I'm not sure of this, or we should take a look at that. That's all I'm advocating for, is to take a look at what is available to us, and if in fact we can save money or not. We're scrutinizing everything having to do with expenditures now, because we know revenue is going to be down. So I'm just trying to be responsible for the taxpayers to make sure we get the best bang for the buck with what we've got. And if we're facing complete duplication here, which I don't know if we are or not, I think it's worth discussing. So I guess that's all I'm asking. I'm not looking for a vote to move forward or not. I am looking for probably to give staff guidance to take a look and see if any of these things are feasible. But I would especially like to know about the RCWs and have a analysis of those RCWs and what they enable us to do or not do. I just want the facts.
So I'm with you in that regard. And I thank Mr. Casino for bringing this forward, because this is a good decision. It's a good discussion and a robust discussion, and we're going to get more information. And we can say if it's never been looked at before, or however long it's been, we're going to have good, fresh, relevant information, especially in light of stepping out of the box or keeping in the box. What can we afford it? Can we not afford it? Will we be charged or not? There's still a lot of questions to be answered. So it's a good discussion to have. I look forward to more information coming forward. Ramiro and then Robin.
Well, I guess I will look for direction from the board. When you say more information, and I hear Commissioner Edwards what he's looking for, it's going to take time and effort to go through all the many different options the county may have in order to provide the board a good perspective. So I don't think I can come up, or staff can come up in a week in answering all those questions. So if the board directs staff to explore all these options, I wish the board gave us some latitude as to when we can come up with a comprehensive analysis of the options that you have. At this point, I don't think we have the resources to come up with answers in a week. So if the board directs me to explore these options on a wider scale, for me to come back and give you a good information for you to make an informed decision, that is entirely up to the board in providing the direction. But again, please don't expect, if that is the direction of the board, that I will be able to come back with all the answers to all those questions within a week.
There's only two pieces of information that I'm requesting, and that is a legal take on whether we draw all the cities out at the same time or not, and a call to DOE, will you charge us or not? And if you will, or if you're going to, what would that be? That's all I need. I am not interested, especially in light of severe budget reductions that we're looking at in the very, very near future. I'm not looking at creating a new, even if it's 6 months down the road. I don't want to create a new organization or a new committee or a new set of work group and have the staff that we need in order to do the work. We can't afford that, as Commissioner Mentor said. $115,000 is probably a dollar well spent currently. I'm not interested in going down that hole, because that's just a waste of time and resources. I agree with that. I'm just looking for a phone call to DOE, to the state. What are you going to charge us if you do? And will we suck all the cities out with us or not? And I can decide on that myself. Commissioner Mentor, and then I'll get to Robin.
Well, I was going to say, I agree that what you said, that those are the two pieces of information that I would like to see in a week. I'm not, take whatever time you need to get them, but I did ask the folks at Orca about and I'd like to confirm, on our side, but their response was that the new person, their name Kathy, I didn't get the last name, but the person they were referred to said, we haven't done anything like this. They do some stuff that's a little different and has a historical component out in Eastern Washington, but if we were to have them do this here, they would have to, they're not going to be able to tell us what it costs, because they're going to have to hire staff and figure out what the parameters are, what they're doing. So I'm assuming you're going to get the same answer they got, which is that they would charge us, but they're not going to tell us a specific amount. But I'm happy to have that confirmed with our own phone call to that same contact at Department of Ecology, just so we have that nailed down.
And I'm not in any rush either. A week or 2 weeks, it could take a month. I wouldn't care. Let me get to Robin real quick, Gary. Go ahead, Robin.
I just wanted to clarify that the payment this year to Orca has already been made on January 7th. So we've already paid the full amount. If you're interested and it's available to go to quarterly payments, we could start that next year.
I had something on that. I asked about that at Orca, and they said they hadn't thought about it. No one had ever asked. It's probably something we could do. They said, but their fiscal year, they said, is like July to June, and ours is, so they take our payment in January. So we're already paying like halfway through the cycle. So it may not really save us anything. We're already paying. They could ask for the first quarter in July. They just take the full payment in January. So it may not be that big of a difference one way or the other, but that was their response to that.
Right. Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of lined up there with Commissioner Menser. I just need some answers, and I'm not in a big hurry. And it sounds like as far as the quarterly payment versus an annual payment, okay, can't do that this year, but all these discussions I think are worth having so that we can make good informed decisions. So that's where I'm at. I'm not in a rush. I would certainly like to have some of these questions answered. And, you know, we've got differing opinions, obviously. We've got Mr. Casino that has one point of view, and we've got maybe the Orca folks that have another point of view. And we don't even know what ecology has on it yet. And I'd kind of like to see what are some of the other jurisdictions doing? Can't we check with the Association of Counties and find out which ones do participate at which levels? And I just think it's oftentimes worth a review, just anytime we're talking about the taxpayers' money, that's all.
Okay. Good discussion. Romero, go ahead.
So I'm still a little confused to what the direction that I have for me. Because on one hand, I'm hearing Commissioner Hutchins and Commissioner Menser. They like to have two specific answers. One is whether the county pulls out of Orca, if that action brings all the three cities out. And Elizabeth's going to check on that. The other answer between the Commissioner Hutchins and Commissioner Menser is for me to reach out to DOE to confirm if in fact they will provide free services for free, or what will be the makeup. But I'm hearing Commissioner Erwas would like to explore other questions, so I need a direction from the board as to what is it that you need for me to do.
Go ahead briefly, Gary, if you can.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I guess the only other thing I'd like is find out what other jurisdictions are doing, and I suppose the Association of Counties has that readily available, so I don't think that's too much to ask. But I'm certainly not pressuring anybody to get on this immediately and come up with an answer by next week. I think we should just take our time, take a look at it. You know we're interested in it because a citizen brought it up. We've discussed it quite a while. Let's see where it leads.
And I'm not looking for you to do that work, Romero.
Well, nobody is overseeing Orca from the staff level. So, and that is for me to figure out whatever direction the board is providing.
And there's no hurry, in my opinion, there's no rush on this at all.
So I have 3 questions. Just want to confirm, just to make sure that is, and again, Elizabeth is going to look into whether the county's action to pull out of Orca, that will, by default, will bring the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater out as well. Second question is contacting DOE to determine if in fact, if the county pulls out, what are the options they will have with DOE if in fact they oversee the compliance aspect of the Clean Air Act. And the third question that I have is reaching out to see what other jurisdictions are doing in terms of addressing the Clean Air Act requirements.
Yeah, and the second piece about the DOE cost, it's even simpler for me. Is it really free? Because if it's not, we're not gonna get the bargain we're getting now.
Yeah, I have a hunch, but I will reach out to DOE.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna move on to number 3. I'll wait till you catch up with your notes, Romero, is the 2020 County Fair, whether it's gonna stay open this year or not. And so I see Josh is on the line as well. Or in the,
Yes. First of all, you have a couple of pieces of information. And this is an email from Josh as well as a letter from the president of the Fair Board. And also I have some feedback from Shelley Slaughter, the public health director. And I think it's all in alignment. Shelley, I strongly encourage to cancel the Fair Board, the Fair for 2020. And you have the letter from Ms. Ann Shipley, which is the president again of the Thurston County Fair, for you to consider canceling the 2020 Thurston County Fair. And there's some information related to that. At this point, I will probably have Josh to elaborate on this recommendation.
Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you. Yes, early last week, the Fair Board leadership participated in a conference call with the Washington State Fairs Association, which had received guidance from the International Fairs Association on how you may proceed with the fair and what next steps could be. Fair Board listened to that information and recognized that due to the high level of barriers to having a successful fair with all of the things related to COVID and to ensure the public well-being, that they are recommending to the Board of County Commissioners that we cancel the 2020 fair.
And the pancake breakfast?
And the pancake breakfast. So all of the coordination and the items that are related to the fair event come from the fair revenue, people coming into the door. And so part of being able to do those nice things where people gather and serve food and congregate are just not part of the process this year. I would say, though, that they are trying to find a path forward on what's called the market sale, where kids that raise animals throughout the year then auction them off. The veterinary requirements are much reduced for that, given that the sale is kind of that's the last step in the journey for the animal, and that there are no judges. So judges cost money. But since there's no judges and the veterinary is reduced, the grounds are going to be open if they can work out a staggered progression for the auction to go online. So there will be hopefully a piece of the fair that continues.
Well, as we know, Ann Shipley lives, eats, and breathes the fair, and she has been the fair. So when she starts her letter off, it's with a heavy heart.
Yeah,
I know she truly means that, and I would imagine she's been reduced to tears over this. And many fundraisers, nonprofits, this is their major event for the year as well.
Yeah.
And the kids thrive on this. And I've sponsored animals, and I know Commissioner Edwards has sponsored animals for kids over the years. And it's just so sad and so tough.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with their recommendation. With everything else through the summer being closed and canceled in the county, and I'm talking about throughout the county, even in the cities, their major fundraisers and festivals, I just can't see having the fair go on either. Commissioners, Gary?
I guess I too would like to recognize Ann for all of her years of service at the fair. And it sounds like the 2021 fair is going to recognize 150 years. And so they'll do a bang up job, it sounds like, in that arena. My concern is I believe there's a blight on the title of that property in which it was gifted to the county at some point many years ago. And if it was not to continue as used as a fair, it was to return back to the heirs of the original gifter. Can't give you any more particulars than that. I just remember that being a discussion at some point when we talked about the possibility of the Ag Center down around Tenino a couple years back. So recognizing that, I wonder if we couldn't get Elizabeth to give us proper verbiage if we do a resolution to cancel the fair, recognizing this is strictly because of this situation that we find ourselves in, and we have every intention of continuing to utilize the fairgrounds where possible for fair participant type activity, kids mainly, I think, but looking forward to 2021 and we're just kind of regrouping now because of our situation so we don't run afoul of the verbiage on that blighted title.
Commissioner Menser?
I don't have anything to add. The letter we got was heartfelt and well reasoned, and I have to agree with what the recommendations are. And I hope they're able to do the market thing that Josh described so the kids can have that resolution to their projects with their animals.
Good, okay. So you need direction you need thumbs up on from the board?
Well,
We're going to suspend or cancel the fair, county fair?
I was under the impression there would be just a decision by the board, but Commissioner Edwards is requesting a formal resolution.
Well, I'm not necessarily requesting a formal resolution. I want council to take a look at that issue on that title. I can't tell you much about it.
Okay.
I just don't wanna now we're in a situation where a citizen comes forward and says, oh, you're not using the fair anymore, so that reverts back, after 180 days or so. I don't know what it says. I just want to be careful.
Thank you for the clarification. We'll look into that.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
As far as I'm concerned, you made a decision to cancel the 2020 Thurston County Fair.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would think if there was a flood or a tornado and we couldn't do the fair, that it wouldn't revert back because we're not using it.
I wouldn't think so either, but.
It's an emergency, yeah.
And we'll draft a news release, hopefully today, and again, I'll follow up with Elizabeth to look into the encumbrance of the title.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can I just echo the board's thanks to and appreciation to the Fair Board. This was not an easy decision, obviously, and this is their volunteer work as citizens. So this is a big deal for them, and thank you to all of our Fair Board members.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'd like to commend
Yes.
all.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Josh. Planning session for May 22nd, the agenda.
Yeah, we have scheduled a day-long planning session with you commissioners on May 22nd. I had some agenda items. I have been accumulated over the last few weeks that you would like to discuss. But I think the main purpose of that meeting will be for you to conclude your decisions on the budget and some of the potential reductions that you may be considering. There is a couple sessions that we have already scheduled to continue the conversation with you this Thursday. And then depending on your initial perspective on this Thursday, I would like to hold that day long for you to have ample time to go through some of the options that you have in terms of budget reductions, with the hope that you will provide direction at the end of that day. Because remember, again, we need to have a direction by the board so we can start implementing whatever measures you see fit by July 1st, 2020. And that will give us a month at least to start having a conversation with the bargaining units and potential options that you may have. That was probably really, I want to make sure that you're tracking that, and then I have some items scheduled, but I believe that day should be budget related issues. And again, just make sure that you have ample time to make those difficult decisions that come in before you.
And if either of us, any three of us, need additional information, to request it in a timely fashion so we're prepared for it. Because we have 3 hours on this Thursday, and then we have 7 hours, or 7.5 hours, it looks like, on the 22nd.
And I'm gonna try to schedule something in between as well, just to make sure that we have enough time to go through this process.
All right. And that planning session will be held here just like we're doing now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we'll provide lunch.
Thank you.
It's bigger,
Gary, go ahead.
Because the county manager did bring up that we're gonna do some budgetary things coming up on this, and that's a pretty serious item. I'm curious, I've been reviewing the guidance that we got referenced the CARES Act, and I think we're participating in a webinar at noon or something today, so we're coming up on that to give us a little more guidance. I do have a question though. Did we get a check in the mail, or do we have to respond to every payout by sending it to DC or something and get an authorization and get it back? In other words, is there gonna be a lengthy bureaucratic process? And I don't know if Robin can give us the answer now, but I think we should know that.
She can.
The county is receiving our Treasury CARES Act funding through the state. So we will have a contract with the Washington State Department of Commerce, and they have determined that we need to claim the money on a reimbursement basis. So we have to spend it and then ask to be reimbursed by the state. That is causing me some concerns about cash flow, and we have raised that with our legislative delegation.
Okay, that's where I was going, so.
Yeah, last week I did raise the concern with the local legislators that, at least from my point of view, I don't know why the Department of Commerce has put themselves in the middle where counties about 500,000 population did receive a direct allocation from the Treasury Department.
Yeah, and I guess just a follow-up question on that is, does that mean that Commerce is gonna take 20% or something of what we get for overhead, for managing? There's a lot of unknowns that I'd like to be made aware of before we move forward on some of this.
We have not seen the contract yet, but my expectation, if you will, is that the state will retain part of the money that could be passed through to local jurisdictions in compensation for administrative costs.
So
That would be my suspicion.
So we don't like the state again now.
Well, they are, they've passed out or allocated 300 million, and they've got about another 200 million that they've held back. And I would expect that they hold back a piece of that 200 million.
Ty, go ahead.
I just wanted to, on this topic of the planning session, Ramiro, can you tick through the other items that
Yes.
we're bumping?
Yeah,
Just so I have a sense of what the agenda was.
So the items that we had at that point was, that I had on my whiteboard is for you to have a conversation as to how you potentially name the trails in the county. You had a request from the city of Rainier to name a portion of that trail, including the cities. And as part of that discussion, the board wanted to have a more robust conversation as to how you would like to really rename all the trail systems in the county. The other item that I had is board and commission assignments. And that is related, whether you would like to continue with the process that you have, meaning it is a very democratic process, although the sum of the representatives to those boards and commissions represent your individual districts. But the appointment is more in the democratic process. And I believe that was another item you would like to discuss, whether you'd like to continue with that process, or perhaps the commissioner who represents that specific district has a little more weight in assigning individuals to boards and commissions. The other item that I had was started having the conversations of Plan B of the courthouse project. The other item I have budget, so but that was more related as to how the 2021-22 budget was to continue the conversation, but I think we need to address the 2020 first. And the last item that I had is to have a conversation about the Quixote Village and the operations of that site. I'm not sure how that item came to my whiteboard. I believe it was a request from one of the commissions, so I need to check my notes as to what the intent of that item was. That's all I had.
Thank you.
All right.
Hutch?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I guess I have a question maybe for Elizabeth. How does that work when we're operating under this emergency condition when it comes to, I don't know, routine, normal, necessary? Are some of these issues that you're bringing up, that the county manager is bringing up, do they fall within the category that, yeah, that would be within the realm of what we're supposed to be working on in these emergency sessions? I mean, I see the budget as the biggest issue that we're stuck with, and as a big problem. I just wonder if these other things can't be held off for a while. I just can't believe we're gonna go anywhere on a courthouse and naming some trails and different things like that. I just don't see them as that important in comparison to the seriousness of the budget situation. That's all. So not that they aren't important, they're very important, but I would hate to have somebody bring something forward, well, that wasn't an emergency, and then we get criticized. So that's all. Just, I don't know if you have an answer for it or not, council.
Be necessary and routine. I can't
You're
hear you.
muted.
I didn't catch all the items Romero went over, but generally speaking, I mean, a lot of it, your call and what you think is a priority within the framework of your normal business. Obviously, budget is one of them. But some of those other items, if they can wait, I guess the question is, can these items that you're thinking about, is there a time deadline that you're running up against?
No, and my suggestion is it was not to bring those items on the.
Oh, not to bring those items.
Right.
Oh, for some reason, I thought that was part of our agenda.
No, my recommendation was to concentrate on the planning session on just only budget.
Oh,
Yeah.
Commissioner Menzer asked me what were the items that we were considering bringing.
I wanted to know what was getting bumped off
Yeah.
the agenda.
My recommendation was not.
Okay,
All
I'm
that
sorry,
energy expenditure,
I
nothing.
questioned, I misunderstood what you said.
Okay. So you got, are we done with the planning session then?
Yeah.
Okay, public testimony.
Okay. Yes, this is a follow-up to the card strides issue, and this is in response to Mr. Pettit, many letters related to the hard strides and the contract the county had with them. I have, first of all, I had conversations with legal staff yesterday, and through that conversation, so I'm gonna schedule an executive session next Tuesday to inform the board some of the details related to this matter. But I'd like to highlight a request that Commissioner Edwards made to me last week related to this contract, and attached to you is a one-pager, I think is the last on your packet. And this is, Commissioner Edwards asked me, you have it, it's one pager.
I got it.
Yeah. Asked me as to how Hard Strides was selected to provide services to the county. So it started in 2017, and I'm gonna briefly walk you through this. It was issued an RFP in April 12, 2017. Hard Strides was one of 9 respondents to the request for proposals. Applications were reviewed by the TST, that Treatment Sales Tax staff, and members of the Treatment Sales Tax TST Advisory Committee reviewed those recommendations, and those recommendations were made available to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners approved those recommendations, and those were the community grant process. Moving into 2018, another RFP was issued in mid-March 15, 2018, and at that point there were 12 responders, and Hard Strides was one of them. And they went through the same selection process. The TST Advisory Committee provided recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners, and at that point the Board of County Commissioners approved issuing that contract to Hard Strides. Between 2019 2020, because Hard Strides provided those services to juvenile court, the TST Advisory Committee decided to incorporate as part of an ongoing program that would be funded by the TST. And those decisions were made back in 2019 2020, which the Board of County Commissioners concurred on that recommendation from the TST. So I believe that is the question that Commissioner Edwards had for me last week. And again, I will bring more information to you next Tuesday morning at the end of the agenda setting. And I'd like to publicly request that Commissioner Hutchins be recused from any conversations related to this item during the executive session.
Got it.
When is this coming up?
Next Tuesday morning.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. Any questions on that?
No, I think this gives us a pretty good breakdown of that process and the recommendations from the treatment sales tax folks, you know.
Yep. And thank you, Carrie Hennon, for putting this together.
Thank you.
All right. There was nothing more public testimony wise?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we're not even going to try to get into commissioner items. We're going to go ahead and close this meeting, adjourn, because we're getting into a WASAC.
Never
soon.
enough time.
All right. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.